All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio on this 22nd day of April, Monday. I want to thank, of course, Gary Hendershot, Smart Scarecrow, for hosting the Alternative Energy Hour every Monday, 5 o'clock West, 8 o'clock East. You can also hear him when he does his program on Thursday on Justin TV. Just go to your browser and search for Smart Scarecrow. It'll take you to his website, and you can see the times there. Joining us here in just a minute, Sabel Edmonds is coming back on the program. And I got a hunch. I got a link sent to me by her today. USA, the creator of and sustainer of Chechen terrorism, and I can't wait. I'm probably just going to turn it loose to her here in a minute and give us the background on it, especially, obviously, in light of what's happened recently in Boston and the people who are dead and shot in the throat, and these kids that have been put before us as these mastermind terrorists who planned out this event, or at least were persuaded to carry out this event. But it brings me to a commentary that I'm posting later that I want to start with. It has everything to do with where we're at as a nation, as a world, because it was just about 13 years ago when the United States and the planet in general was thrown into a sea of fear. Right? 9/11 brought us the Patriot Act, the liberty-killing, liberty-usurping piece of legislation, and thousands of pieces of legislation since then, building on that foundation of repression, have led us to what? Are we as free as we were in 2001? The answer is simple, absolutely not. Are we as safe as we were in 2001? Look, thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people have died in the name of the war on terror since 2001. We have things have been done in our name that have led to millions of people around this world that want to do nothing more with the rest of their lives other than to find out how they can kill somebody in the United States or kill an American. Why is this? Because we have a never-ending war on terror that destabilizes nations, that topples governments, that kills 50 people in order to get one so-called high-value target. And let's be honest, if it was your child, your sister, your mother, a family member, a friend, who was one of the 50 killed to get one, can you not imagine yourself spending the rest of your life trying to exact some kind of revenge? This is all being done in our name. A never-ending war that promises to bring more pain and suffering to the people of the world, and yes, the people of the United States. We're not any more free than we were in 2001. And the promise of safety that was given to us with the Patriot Act in legislation sense has certainly proven to be nothing of the sort. We are less free and we are more in danger than I believe we've ever been as a nation. And the people of this country have been living in this fear. The people of the United States who have been living under this black cloud of fear for so long, it's starting to take a toll on the people of the United States and the world. But let's look at America. Suicide has just replaced car accidents as the number one cause of injury and death in the United States. It's the first time this has ever happened. More U.S. soldiers killed themselves last year than were killed in combat because they're coming back broken individuals. We spent $280 billion on prescription drugs last year alone. A lot of them were antidepressants, psychotropic drugs. In fact, 1 in 4 women listening to me right now in the United States is on an antidepressant. We're shoving the same garbage down our kids' throats. In the United States, children are 3 times more likely to take an antidepressant than they are elsewhere in the world. And if we can't cure it with a legal drug like alcohol or prescription drugs or illegal drugs, we try to cure it with food. We eat to get past the anxiety. In the United States this year, this is a staggering statistic. 36% of the people in the United States of America are obese. In 1962, before we had GMOs and corn syrup sweetened everything, in 1962 that number was 13%. We need to realize that with 2001 and the Patriot Act, we did not get safety and security. We need to realize that this anxiety that we're feeling as a nation is having a direct effect on our lives. And the number one thing we can do to counter this, we're trying all we can in all these different forms and all these different mediums to expose the lies of the mainstream media, Washington, D.C., the security and military industrial complex. But we need to take control of our own lives. And the number one thing we can do to gain some control over our lives is realize where we're at, to break through the fluff of the mainstream media, to break through the lies of the politicians, and understand where we're really at, because facing the problem is certainly the first step in gaining control of our own future. All right, I want to talk. I didn't do very long commentary tonight for a specific reason, because we have the great Sabel Edmonds coming back on. And Sibel, welcome back to the program. Everybody, her website is boilingfrog.com, right? Is that right? I'm going to say it wrong.
Yes, boilingfrogpost.com.
Boilingfrogpost.com. Go there. Great stuff. She puts up there all the time, and bookmark it. Go there. Support her. She's funding her existence completely through that website. So get over there and support Sibel. Been through a lot in her life and is an excellent, outstanding resource for us here on Wide Awake News. Sibel, USA, the creator and sustainer of Chechnyan terrorism. I'm more than sure this is going to take up this entire program. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You know, you've been talking about Chechnya, the Chechen rebels, the expansion of the new terrorist enemies for quite some time. In fact, this article you wrote a couple years ago. Give us your take. And here we sit a few days after the Boston Massacre, as it's being called, where we have two guys that this has all been pinned on, Chechens, and our government tripping over themselves, thanking Putin and Russia for their help in getting these guys. But it's really funny, and your article points out, that the new terrorist threats happen to be all very close, either NATO members or allies of the United States. And you painted this picture. You told us this was coming a couple of years ago.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, since my case began in 2002, I have been emphasizing the region, Central Asia and Caucasus, for the biggest reason for all the state secrets, privilege invocations, and the gag orders in my case. Basically, what I obtained firsthand experience, what I worked on while I was working in the FBI, was mainly focused on these files that covered the period of 1996 till 2002. Okay, and during this period, from these documents, some of them are recorded conversations, some of them are documents. These documents and these records shed lights on our operation. This is the United States, together with NATO, focused on Central Asia and Caucasus, okay? And the period it covered was, again, I'm emphasizing 1996 till 2002. It went a few months even after 9/11. Directly or through our proxy partner nations such as NATO member Turkey, United Emirates, and also Saudi Arabia. From mid-1990s, we, the United States and NATO, we have been creating, funding, training, arming, and directing several factions within Central Asia and Caucasus, okay? Mm-hmm. And this region and these factions also included the Chechens, factions in Dagestan. These are the areas within Russia's territory, okay? And also the former Soviet blocs. You just name all the stands, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. A lot of people in the United States now, they have kind of awakened to this notion of blowback. They are like, okay, in 1980s, because there was this Cold War and the big bad communists and the Soviet Union, we ended up partnering with these horrible guys, including Bin Laden, you know, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, these factions from Saudi Arabia, Egypt. Mm-hmm. And we used these mujahideens against the big bad communists. You know what? We got to do what we got to do. And unfortunately, that came back and we had a blowback and it just hit us. That's the narrative. That's the story they want to tell the American people. Well, it didn't stop after the collapse of the Soviet Union, because this is what I have first. This is the main reason for the state secrets privilege in my case. In 1990s, after the fall of the collapse of the Soviet Union, we, the United States, this is the CIA and NATO, both directly and through our partners such as Turkey, because Turkey is a Turkish-speaking country, and these former Soviet blocs in the Soviet Union around Russia, they're all Turkic-speaking nations.
All right, we're going to pick it up there. We're going to start with Turkey when we come back from this break. We'll be back with Sabel Edmonds and more Wide Awake News in just a minute. Hang tight. Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath joined by Sabel Edmonds of the boilingfrogpost.com. Go there, bookmark it, check it out every day. Sibel, we had to interrupt you for the commercial break. You were talking about the stands and this region of the world that isn't really talked about much, and some Americans or the West, I should say, is starting to wake up to what's happening there. And you started to talk a little bit about Turkey when we cut you off, so please continue.
Correct, because Turkey strategically is very important, both in terms of its location, but also in terms of sharing the same religion, Islam, sharing the same language, Turkish, and all these former Soviet republic, whether it's Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, many of them, the majority of them speak Turkic languages. So we implemented a lot of our operations. This is the United States government, CIA, together with NATO, via Turkey. And this was the continuation of, some people are familiar with the term, the Gladio operation that started during the Cold War. Anyhow, we basically created, funded, implemented a lot of operations, directed a lot of these terrorist factions against Russia, okay? And this included the factions in Dagestan, also in Chechnya, and we used Islam. And this is not in 70s or 80s. This is in after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And so because this region is extremely important to us because of the resources, natural gas, you have oil, you have minerals. Now, if you look at the people in charge of all these operations, okay, you don't see them there in the background, but there are even lobbies established for Chechnya. Chechnya is not even a nation, right? You know what this lobby is called? It's called the American Committee for Peace in Chechnya. And this was established in 2000.
Yeah, run down this committee. I read it in the article. We talked about in the break. Run down the who's.
So, correct. The lobbyists for Chechnya and these Chechen radical Islamic rebels and terrorists are the ex-CIA director James Woolsey, okay? You're looking at Bruce Jackson. He was the former U.S. military intelligence officer and also the president of the U.S. Committee on NATO. You're looking at the famous, infamous neocon Richard Perle, former Pentagon advisor. You're looking at Elliot Abrams of Iran-Contra, okay? You're looking at Frank Gaffney. You're looking at Michael Ledeen of American Enterprise Institute. So you're looking at all these shadow government guys that we have, okay? These top neocons who are set themselves up as lobbyists for Chechnya. It's not even a nation. You would think, why the CIA guys, the Pentagon DIA guys, and these neocon scumbags get together, and why Chechnya is so important? Well, it's within the Russian territory. And this is where, since 1990s, mid-1990s, we have been putting in place, using various Islamic groups, radicalizing them, arming them, training them, and having them go and commit terror, okay? Terror operations in Russia, and in some cases in the border of China, in Xinjiang area, okay? So these people are our creations. And if you look at the U.S. mainstream media, up until this Boston terror incidents, just comb through the references to any Chechens and the radicals there. They are the freedom fighters. They are the people, and the Russians are repressive, and they are abusing these minorities. And bam, out of the blue, overnight, that picture changes. Suddenly, this happens to be the hottest Al-Qaeda-led terrorist cell in the entire world. And we have to ask ourselves, what's going on here?
Yeah, what's going on? Why are we flipping the script on Chechnya? In fact, the president came out, hours after the martial law was declared in Boston, and was thanking the Russian president Putin for his help in getting information to nail these two guys. But it's just like the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, or now we're still fighting them. We're still dying, and we're still killing people, fighting people that we train there. That is the same blowback that we're getting in Chechnya, correct? Or from the activity
But is it? Because The blowback thing, as I said, this whole notion of, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I mean, no matter, with FBI, we know they are incompetent. There are a lot of incompetent people there who are kind of idiotic. They're like borderline. Okay, I'll put that aside. But when you're looking at these guys, Elliot Abrams, you're looking at Richard Pearl, you're looking at the CIA, you're looking at the highest level of people, both in terms of from outside, whether it's Kissinger or Brzezinski, or you're looking
Shadow
at these
government
guys.
folks.
You're not looking at something that, well, after 9/11, I don't buy this whole notion of blowback anymore because we've gone through it. Supposedly we learned, right? Because we're implementing all these police states principles one by one in the United States. So you have to look at the bigger picture and see a lot of things going on with the region currently. Number one, Russia has been the biggest obstacle with our invasion of Syria. The reason we are not in there, we haven't invaded that country like we've been invading a lot of other countries, is only Russia, okay?
Yeah.
So that's one factor playing there. We have the recent stuff, the development.
Hold on. Let's leave it at Russia being the major hurdle for the West toppling the government of Syria and getting involved with boots on the ground there. We'll take this break and we'll pick it up there when we come back with Sabel Edmonds, founder of the boilingfrogpost.com. We'll be back in just a minute. Hang tight. Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Sabel Edmonds, 22nd day of April, Monday. We're going to continue this conversation. I'm going to just kind of break where we were and get into this, only because I'm worried about time, Sibel, and I want to, let's break down the official story that we have in Boston, right? Give us an overview of what they're trying to sell to the people and why you think it's bunk and what this operation looks like to you.
Charlie, this is so similar to Osama bin Laden shooting. Every day this story evolves and then devolves and it changes and you get so much information that is either conflicting or contradicting or in some cases just plain wrong, false, okay? Whether intentional or unintentional. But some of the inconsistencies that are really, really red flag raising for me had to do with the timeline. Because the FBI first denied the fact that they were in touch with the so-called suspects. Then they said they received a tip from a foreign government in 2011, and this is late 2011. And later we found out from Russia that actually that foreign government was Russian government. And then they went and checked. They didn't find anything. They closed the file, okay? And supposedly Russia contacted the FBI again in 2012, end of 2012, after one of the brothers came back from Dagestan region. And so on the other hand, the parents for the suspects, they're talking about the period 3 to 5 years ago.
Right.
This dates back by at least 2 years from the period of time that the FBI is now confirming in terms of the Russian government, the FSB, contacting them and giving them the tips. So that's extremely important. And for me, one of the most important things that it points out, both from the timeline, but also when it comes to the description of the government agents' approach to the two brothers, according to both parents. You know, one minute they're saying, we know you're innocent, we know you're good. The next minute you're saying you can all become dangerous. It is a very classic recruitment approach, you know, when you want to recruit assets or snitch. Even the police officers use that when they want to obtain confession. It's like, listen, you know, we know that you didn't do much of this crime. The other guy did, but we need you to talk to us and do this stuff for us, right? This is a very familiar classic approach. But then FBI, on the other hand, wouldn't have much reason to do that. And a lot of these characteristics that are popping up here and there points out to the CIA and why CIA would approach them, which is far more likely. When I was at George Washington University, one of my professors tried to recruit me into the CIA. This was 1997. Why? I was speaking Turkish, Farsi, Azerbaijani. I held multiple passports. I mean, this is like a wet dream for that horrible agency. And when it comes to these guys, we don't have many people from the Caucasus in the United States. They speak Russian, they speak Chechen, Turkic languages, and English, okay? They still, especially the older brother, holds the passport, okay? These are extremely important for the CIA, and that makes a very, very valuable asset. And maybe due to the English shortage or some other reason, the parents, they may have assumed FBI, but possibly that was not the FBI that 3 to 5 years ago contacted the families, contacted the boys, and
you're thinking it was CIA.
working with them. And
You're thinking it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm saying you're thinking that this 3 to 5 years, and I've heard the 5 years from the mother, is accurate, but it wasn't necessarily the FBI. It might have been the CIA trying to recruit these guys.
Because I have sources within the FBI and people who also have by now retired, and they're saying this just doesn't fit FBI's modus operandi. They do a lot of other awful stuff, but this doesn't fit. Now, in 2011, after the Russians, correct, they contacted the FBI. Now, that makes sense. And FBI went, and according to the FBI, they checked, they couldn't find anything. Bam, right away, they closed the case. Why? Now, the real story would be the FBI found out from the CIA. CIA told them, hands off, these guys are with us. That's why they closed the files. I mean, you can't say 2 years ago these people had no radicalism. There was no evidence of any wrongdoing, any communication with the extremist group, and close the case, and bam, a year and a half later come and say, oh, they were going to these internets. You can't have it both ways. So the one way that could have taken place would be for the CIA/State Department tell the FBI saying, we are working with these guys, you just butt out, and therefore FBI. Because while I was working for the FBI, that occurred all the time with other cases where CIA would step in, FBI would want to pursue someone criminally or under counterterrorism, but the FBI, CIA would step in and say, hands off, this is our guy, okay? And it happened regularly, it happened frequently. So that is one hypothesis, and I am strongly leaning towards that rather than FBI 3 to 5 years ago working with these people. And then also another important thing is the mainstream media is not providing any context, okay? The latest context we just talked about, and one is the Syria issue with Russia being the biggest obstacle.
Right.
2, we know that a couple of months ago, Russia shut down all the U.S. NGOs and kicked them out, okay? A few weeks ago, U.S. basically imposed sanctions on 18 Russians in retaliation. And also 2 weeks ago, we had Russia send a very strong message to U.S. on the joint U.S.-Georgia joint military operations in the border there, okay? And if you look at Georgia on the map and you look at Dagestan and Chechnya, you will see the extreme importance of this whole region. It was only 4 or 5 years ago in 2008 that we had the Russian-Georgian wars on the South Ossetia-Abkhazia region, okay? And Chechnya and Dagestan fall right within that same region. So that is also important. But as we know, the mainstream media, they just throw out all the stuff. They get their scripts from the State Department and they print it. First, FBI didn't know anything about these people. Oh, actually they did. Oh, this was a foreign government. Then Russia comes out and says, well, that was us. So there are a lot of convoluted stuff out there. There are a lot of contradictions out there. Every day that passes, we're gonna have this story change and evolve, and
until it's out of the news cycle, right?
Exactly.
We'll have
just like Bin Laden shooting.
Yeah, we'll have benefits. We'll have people wearing "Remember Boston." We'll have celebrities coming out endorsing the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the martial law that was implemented, and then we'll pretend America's #1 and drive on and not really pay attention to these important connections that you're breaking down here. So, and
then there are domestic agendas, and that let's not forget that, because
let me ask you this. We got about a minute and a half before this next break. If it was a CIA operation, and you make a very, very strong case, and with your background, I have no doubt, no reason to doubt that you're 100% right on the money. Would it be they need to destabilize this region next? We need to have some turmoil in this region so we can put that in the crosshairs of the war on terror. So they would allow these people to knowingly carry out this, or are you suggesting potentially this could have been a false flag from the get-go?
Well, absolutely. For the first part, first of all, and that is, first of all, the plans for this region, they have been in play for several decades. It's been, I mean, if you look at all the stuff at Brzezinski, Henry Kissinger, Central Asia, Caucasus is the future of the energy resources area. This is the area where China, Russia, and US are competing against. Middle East is going to be gone. 15 years from now, 20 years from now, you're not going to even hear about Saudi Arabia or Bahrain or even Iraq to that degree, but it's going to be Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, all the stay in Central Asia and Caucasus, because where they are sitting, and because this is the future of the energy resources. So that has been going on for a long time. Number two, as always, we need that pretext. I mean, look at this with the American people. Up until about a few weeks ago, if Russians would attack and try to take care of some of the terrorist radicals there, Chechnya, Dagestan, Abkhazia, that region, we would be saying in our media how the Russians are repressing these minorities and blah, blah, blah. But today, tomorrow, if something like that were to happen, we are going to cheer for it and say, yeah, those Al-Qaeda radical Islamists, you can see how quickly the US government and the media can change the American people's perception. Same thing with interference. Right now, they are setting the ground for when the time comes, maybe 6 months, maybe a year from now, for US saying, now it's not Yemen, it's not Syria, it's not Iraq. All the top Al-Qaeda guys, including Zawahiri, they are in the Caucasus region, Central Asia region. Therefore, we are going to send our drones there. And we are looking at direct conflict then with Russia, which is going to be a totally different ball game. But you are looking at the setting up stage with that.
That's absolutely fascinating and a brilliant perspective. And I want to break down with the last segment, the Russia-U.S. conflict potential. We'll be back with Sabel Edmonds. More Wide Awake News Radio in just a minute. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Sabel Edmonds is our guest, and we were talking off air about the response of the people of Boston, the people of this country, and how it's terrifying. It's terrifying to see how this test went off without a hitch. Martial law was implemented. A couple of patsies were put in front of the camera, and all of a sudden, another successful endeavor. We stopped the bad guys. Sibel, with this final segment, you talked at the break a little bit about the next 2 weeks The next 2 weeks are going to play out to be very, very interesting and telling. What did you mean by that?
Right, because a lot of people, they're looking at this incident and all these conflicting reports that are coming out. They're not looking at the big context. And this is exactly what they want. And through their mainstream media, confusion, chaos, and then something else is going to replace. For a few days, maybe North Korea will come and replace it. What people should pay attention to is a lot of developments that will take place in the next 2 weeks on an international front. One is with Syria and Russia, okay? Mm-hmm. And that is, up until this point, we would have been inside Syria. We would have gotten rid of Assad the way we did with Mubarak, kind of kill him so he wouldn't even talk to him like with Gaddafi, right, and be over with it. The only reason we have been having this semi-measured approach, which is not characteristic of our cowboy mentality, is Russia. Russia has been, up to this point, a major obstacle. We don't want to have, this direct confrontation with Russia. Now, if in the next 2 weeks we see this really unexplained change in Russian stand in kind of backing up and letting this happen, and for serious faults, Assad's fault in Syria, I would say, people would say, well, that's Syria, this is Boston. What do they have to do with each other? I would say a lot, because international politics is convoluted, it's dirty, a lot of things happen. I mean, sometimes you get enemies making deals, say, okay, what is in this, what is for me in this thing? And you say, this is what it is for me, and this is what you're going to get out of this. And handshakes happen behind the scenes, and people don't even know about it. This is not something that the media ever is going to cover, because it takes place behind the scenes.
So if in the next few weeks we see the stance on Russia, or the stance by Russia on Syria lighten, and the rhetoric or actual direct action perhaps in Syria by the West, you're thinking a deal would be possibly cut between the West and Russia for what? For them to take action in the Balkans or in the stands?
Well, it would be, for U.S. would be Syria, for Russia would be this. We are very good at this. We easily categorize people as terrorists, okay? In the Balkans, it was KLA, they were terrorists. Then we made them freedom fighters, our partners. Then we made them back terrorists again, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with Mujahideen Khalq, MEK or MKO, depends on who is doing the abbreviation. Okay, they were terrorists. And now we want to remove the terrorist label because we want to use them against Iran. Same thing with Chechens. Chechens were our guys, our creation in terms of the radicalism and the terrorism. But so we labeled them as freedom fighters. We can easily, for a short period of time, okay, take that label off and say, now they are terrorists. This is the hotbed of Al-Qaeda, hot terrorist cell there, okay? and give the opportunity to Russia, because Russia hasn't tackled it truly, because they can't tackle this issue, because they don't want the bad rep international PR too much. What is it going to be? The whole world, the Europe, US, look at Russia repressing these people. Then you have in the border Azerbaijan, NATO member. So they have been kind of staying back. Now giving them free hand, because now if Russia goes and does some cleaning, our people, hey, collateral damage for us. We create this guy, some of them get killed, so what? They do that. So that may be part of it, that we go to Syria, and in the next 2-3 weeks, we see Russia says they have discovered these major terrorist cell operations. They go and kill a bunch of, the Chechen cells there, or people in Dagestan, without much international scandal, because that's part of the gentleman's agreements behind the scenes. Not that
sure, and it's in the shadow of Boston, after all.
Absolutely. Because see, with Boston now, the U.S. can have that excuse saying Boston proved that Chechens are terrorists, they are Al Qaeda, blah blah blah, and let Russia do it without much negative, very harsh international PR. And it would be, so that's one possibility. Again, it's not a theory, it's a hypothesis that I'm leaning towards. So that's what people should be paying attention to. What's going to take place in the next couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, with Russia, with Syria, in the region. And I would say also keep a close eye on Georgia, on Ivanishvili.
If that did occur, I'm trying to play this out, and I'm certainly going to, listen to your analysis and watch out for the relations. I mean, you're already proven somewhat right by the fact that all this gushing collaboration between the U.S. and Russia in finding, in getting information on these guys. This information given, the president thanking Putin. You already saw a little softer line between the U.S. and Russia. But if that were the case, and Russia was allowed to go in there and clean house, as you say, wouldn't it put them in the position to control that energy resource in the future? And what do we get out of it? Syria? I mean...
Well, first of all, if you look at the region, we already have, look at where we have our bases. I mean, Azerbaijan, look at Caspian Sea. The other side is Iran, which is next in the line after Syria. Right now, it's not really time for Iran. It will come its time in the next year or so. But Azerbaijan, we have it. Azerbaijan has been under NATO training and is going to be an official member of NATO in the next, they're saying 24 months. Georgia, they have already applied. They are in line to become NATO members. Yeah. If you look at Russia, you will see that we have basically surrounded, outside maybe a little bit of Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan. Uzbekistan is a kind of a toss-up. It can go either way. We have been doing that. I mean, we also don't forget about China. So, but now we are looking at Russian territory, because Dagestan, Abkhazia, Ossetia, Chechnya, these are the 4 strategically hot buttons for Russia, okay? And for them to go and clean up house, we're going to say, fine, we look the other way, but we have the rest of it. And again, a lot of people would say, well, Saakashvili is out, and Ivanishvili is more pro-Russia, but that's not the case. If you look at the joint operations, collaborations with NATO in the past, at least I would say 15 months between NATO and Georgia, you're not looking at a guy who's pro-Russia, okay? His stuff, even his money and assets, they're all tucked in the UK, the British Virgin Islands, okay? And we had this joint military exercise. The excuse for US was, we are doing that because Georgia is our partner in terms of Afghanistan, and this is geared towards Afghanistan. This happened at the end of March. We are pulling out of Afghanistan, and Russia said, hey, you know what, I'm not dumb. I know what you're doing, and enough is enough. And they send a pretty cryptic yet strong message to Washington that they're not going to tolerate these joint NATO Georgia-U.S. exercises, military exercises there. So that was brewing since mid-March there, less than a month ago. So if you keep a close eye, you're going to see that some stuff are brewing there. Of course, you're not going to see any of these contacts or any of the correlation with what's going on from the mainstream media or the quasi-alternative media by George Soros.
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, it won't even be brought up. In fact, we talked a little bit about how this will play out over the next couple of weeks. 2 weeks from now, the average person in this country won't even be able to associate any international news with this event that happened in Boston. With the last couple of minutes, Yeah, it is unfortunate. I know, you're going to do your best over there at boilingfrogpost.com, and we will as well, and independent media will. But unfortunately, the vast majority are still plugged into the so-called establishment media, and to prove that the people of this nation are just in the path like a herd, being led down chutes in a slaughterhouse. Let's talk with the last couple minutes here about the shocking reality of the reaction of the people of Boston, Massachusetts, bluest of the blue states, folks who are standing up and demanding Gitmo be closed and these ending these illegal wars. These same exact people had no problem being thrown into a state of total martial law over an event that was hyped to the moon, giving up their freedom in order in the name of a little bit of safety. Was it shocking to you that this bluest of blue states capitulated wholeheartedly, 100%? Nobody stood up and said, "Wait a minute, this is martial law. Is what you're asking us to give up our freedom so you can go on a manhunt."
We've been pounding this whole thing on police state, that whether it's our communication, martial. Well, this was the grand opportunity. It accomplished a lot of things. You have an event, whoever is the creator, whether it's false flag attack, it established some really good positive for the government that has been seeking to establish a total police state, and saying this is the best way to test a martial laws and see how people react. And people lost and government won. Police state seekers won. Okay, they won it. They won this whole battle to see you're looking at one teenager, 19 years old, with no paramilitary training, with no military training, maybe with a gun or maybe a couple of grenades on the loose, and you have the entire city shut down. You're having the retail stores shut down. You have people saying, government, our savior, basically our Lord, come and rescue us. And even the reaction afterwards, and again, of all the places, Boston, all the Ivy League colleges, the land of liberals and Democrats, and I don't know what we would have seen. I mean, maybe they wouldn't have liked to try it someplace with libertarian-minded people saying, you know what, you got a 19-year-old, you incompetent FBI, stand aside, we'll go take care of him. But in Boston, it was. I mean, the word I used, my first reaction was disgusting.
Yeah.
Then it was a matter of being really troubled. And it's phenomenal to see that how quickly that would work. It was not a major nuclear bomb or 9/11 scale. You're looking at a couple of guys. You're looking at 2 or 3 deaths. I'm not minimizing the loss of life there. But look at the reaction. Look at what government has done or did, and you say they actually that was the drill. That was the drill, because people are talking about drill, but that was the real drill. And they really got comfortable. This is they being the government, with the psychology of the masses, unfortunately in the United States, that whenever we want, we can do it, and it's going to be a piece of cake. And that is the most unfortunate part from the domestic side. While this was happening, CISPA passed,
Yeah, no doubt about it. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean,
Sweet Caroline.
Well, here's the deal. It is a horrific thing that occurred. People died. 3 people died. A bunch of people injured. We can't minimize the loss of life, obviously. But the reaction, the Lord and Savior mentality of we got to shut everything down and wait for Big Brother to come in and save us. It was shocking to see that unfold. And as you said, in this enlightened area of the country where people are supposed to be smarter and looking out for liberties, civil liberties, and the freedoms of the people of this country, of the world, it was shocking to see that occur. But yet it did, and nobody batted an eye. Sabel Edmonds, boilingfrogpost.com is her website. Go over there, check out her work. Absolutely brilliant analysis. I thank you for coming on here and sharing that with us. And we'll get you back on again. No problem. All right, we'll get you back on again here real soon. Sibel, thank you very much, guys. Enjoy Jeff Rince. He's coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow night at the same time. Have a good night. Peace.